Amanda Lang joins us right now. She's host of Taking Stock, which airs Friday nights at 6 o'clock on BNN Bloomberg and, of course, here on the iHeart Radio network. Amanda, I guess we'll start with a couple of big announcements from the federal government. Justin Trudeau, standing up and actually making a couple of announcements. A couple of people wondering why that has taken so long. So let's start with this idea of nixing the GST to help spur housing. What do you make of this?
Yeah, campaign promise that the Liberals made in 2015, so you might say better late than never, coming out of their caucus meeting and asking the provinces to do the same. We saw some analysis from National Bank yesterday saying that the combination of federal and provincial taxes knocked off of development costs could lower a new unit price by 10 to 15%. So not immaterial, right, when we're talking about the high price of things these days. I think you can ask the question of whether this is the right use of tax dollars, because that's what it is, right? It's lost tax revenue going to for-profit companies who are in the business of making money building things. But it's an effort at signaling that they're doing something on affordability.
Didn't Trudeau say not that long ago that it wasn't his job to do this, so to speak? He said this is not a federal mandate?
He did. That'd be one of those truths that he probably wishes he hadn't said. Housing is, of course, not technically the only homes that they're technically responsible for are First Nations. So, but having said that, they of course have lots that they can do to try to help, and they should be seen to be trying to help. What he meant, which is definitely true, is municipalities in the end is where it's kind of the rubber meets the road on actually getting things approved and zoned and built. And then the provinces have a lot to say about some of those things too. I think the cooperation is what people want to see, and the kind of a sense of urgency. This helps get in that direction. At least it sort of shows that the governments are willing to give up tax revenue in order to incentivize building. I'll just go back to developers are not, they're for-profit entities. They're generally quite wealthy. So do they need this incentive to do their jobs?
Yeah. By the way, I will point out, though, that he did say, giving, London, Ontario kind of kudos by saying, here's a municipal government that's actually made an effort to make things easier for developers to build, kind of pointing a finger at all other provinces, because you're right. There's a three-pronged level of government involved in housing. So he did at least acknowledge that.
Toronto's been a disaster.
When it takes 6 years to get a project developed, something's wrong somewhere. So hopefully this spurs, developers to, or at least cities, to make things a little easier to build. Let's go on from that and talk about, and again, we were just talking about this, Amanda, between ourselves. So Justin Trudeau comes out, and François-Philippe Champagne as well. They're going to put the hammer down on grocers in this country. So this is something the Conservatives have been going after, and suddenly the Liberals pulled it out of their quiver.
Yeah, and again, politics may be trumping common sense here because this is a subject that we've kind of exhausted. There's been a parliamentary review, there's been a Competition Bureau review, and the at issue here is whether these market-driven for-profit entities are making too much money or not. That's really the only question. We want them to stay in business. We need them to stay in business. We know they make a profit. Are they capitalizing? Are they somehow doing us a disservice right now by using inflation to their advantage? And there seems to be very little evidence that they are. So then you would come to, okay, did we just decide grocers should make less money? For what reason? I think it's really interesting we're having that conversation at the same time where we just decided developers should make more money. Why one group and not another? They're both basic human rights, right? Food and housing, they're both pretty important. So it's a kind of a weird optics to me place to kind of weigh in. They did say that they are going to introduce legislation to beef up the Competition Act, which is something our competition commissioner has been asking for. So that may well help us out. That might be where the real problem lies when it comes to grocery stores.
You have to wonder, though, and I know the Canadian taxpayers, somebody, I think it was the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, have already come out and said, wait a sec. And typically they'd be the ones saying, no, we should do something. Saying, great, the next thing, if the government gets nowhere with the grocers, is let's talk about a tax. So who does that hurt? That only ends up hurting the consumer at the end of the day, doesn't it?
Yeah, in the same way that price controls hurt the consumer. It's very tempting to say we're going to cap the price of X, Y, and Z. What we know from how these things work in countries that have tried it is it's a disaster, and that what you want is to let market mechanisms work. And when things get more expensive, and that's almonds to broccoli, we make choices about them. We do want to make sure people can afford what they need. And the way for governments, in our country that typically they've helped with that is on the consumer side, right? Send more money home to the people who are having trouble buying things rather than trying to keep the folks who are in the business of providing them from making a profit off it. So I think we may be coming at it backwards, but it's obviously still very much a hot button issue for Canadians, and it's one we're reminded of daily. We still see incredibly high prices at the grocery store.
Yeah, I've always struggled to understand why my little local store can sell broccoli for $2.99 and then I go to a Loblaws and it's $5.99 or $6.99. And yet it didn't. I'm sure I read somewhere, Amanda, that their massive profits are not on food. It's actually on household items and other things that they're selling in the store. The food margins are really like 3% or something.
Actually, in Loblaws will tell you their food margins are negative, that they're making money in things like pharmacy and household goods, but not in food. They don't break it out. We could actually ask them to do is break it out. And then you can get to this. I think this is kind of an interesting question, is we let Loblaws buy Shoppers Drug Mart, for instance, we, the government, regulatory officials. So they're making lots of money because we allowed that merger to happen. Does that mean they really should actually give us a break on food because they're making money on lipstick? I don't know. And I guess I would just come back to who will decide that, which government body or authority or human being is going to decide. And that's where you get into kind of complicated territory. And most of us land at, let's let the market decide, because we're gonna break it if we try to fix it.
Amanda Lang joining us every Friday afternoon. Thanks so much, Amanda. Have a great weekend.
Always a pleasure.
Take care.
Thank you.
Hosted Taking Stock. You can check it out, by the way, tonight, 6 o'clock on BNN Bloomberg.